being Friday, it is Brunch with Bernie, our weekly 1 hour town hall meeting, national town hall meeting with the senator I think of as America's senator, although the good citizens of Vermont know that he represents them as the independent from that state, the independent senator from that state, Senator Bernie Sanders. Bernie, welcome.
Good to be with you, Tom.
Great to have you. So what's on your mind today? What are you seeing happening in Congress and around the world, around the country?
Well, I think here in Congress there is a great deal of discussion now about the so-called fiscal cliff and how we go forward on deficit reduction. Yesterday, right here in the Dirksen office building, we had, Tom, a great rally in where we had folks from the National Committee to Preserve Social Security and Medicare, one of the strong senior groups. We had some of the unions there. We filled up not only the committee room, but we filled up the overflow room as well. We had hundreds and hundreds of people coming out. Senator Thom Hartmann of Iowa, Sheldon Whitehouse of Rhode Island joined with me. We had a number of members of the House there, Raul Grijalva, Barbara Lee, Jan Schakowsky, and others. And the message was very simple. And that is, yes, we have to do deficit reduction, but we have to do it in a way that is fair. We will not cut Social Security. We will not cut Medicare or Medicaid. We will ask the wealthiest people in this country and the largest corporations to start paying their fair share of taxes. And what is gratifying is that polls that are coming in that I have seen just in the last week indicate to me that the American people absolutely and very strongly support that message. There was a poll that just came out a couple of days ago, commissioned by the AFL-CIO and done by the Peter Hart Research Associates, which showed that by a 64 to 17%, voters want to protect Social Security and Medicare benefits and address the deficit by asking the wealthiest people to start paying their fair share of taxes. So all over America, I think the American people are quite clear that especially in the midst of this horrendous recession, when millions and millions of people in the middle class and the working class are struggling to keep their heads above water, that you don't cut Medicare, you don't cut Medicaid, you don't cut education, but at a time when we have the most unequal distribution of wealth and income in this country since 1929, when the wealthy are doing very, very well and their effective tax rate, as Mitt Romney's tax returns reminded us, are quite low, in many cases lower than middle-class tax returns. Yes, we're going to ask them, and yes, we're going to ask large corporations to start paying their fair share of taxes. So this is the struggle that we are engaged in right now. I'm spending a whole lot of time on this as chairman of the Defending Social Security Caucus. In terms of Social Security, let me reiterate something, by the way, that Ronald Reagan pointed out back in 1983, I think it was. And that is that Social Security, because it is funded by the payroll tax, has nothing to do with deficit reduction. And in fact, Social Security has a $2.7 trillion surplus. So in terms of the whole deficit reduction debate, Social Security should be off the table completely. We shouldn't be talking about Social Security. But in terms of Medicare, Medicaid, education, our job is to protect the programs that working families in this country desperately depend upon, and to ask those people and those large corporations who are doing phenomenally well to start paying their fair share of taxes. I think we should be taking a hard look at military spending. We are now spending 3 times in terms of defense of what we spent in 1997. We're now spending almost as much money as the rest of the world combined. And I think we can look at defense and other government agencies for savings as well. But bottom line is, yes, the wealthy are going to start having to pay their fair share of taxes. And yes, we're going to defend vigorously Social Security, Medicare and Medicaid, and other programs which are so important to the working families of this country.
Do you think that there's a chance that Elizabeth Warren will be put on the banking committee?
I would certainly hope so. Obviously, Elizabeth has a whole lot of expertise in that area. She has been one of the folks in this country who has paid the kind of attention and made the proper critiques that should be made with regard to Wall Street. Tom, as I have suggested to you many times, I think we are never going to see the growth of the middle class and an economy that we deserve as a nation unless we begin to deal with Wall Street. Wall Street is a world unto itself. It is unbelievably powerful. It has more money. The sixth largest financial institutions control assets equivalent to 2/3 of the GDP of America, $9 trillion. They write half the mortgages, 2/3 of the credit cards. How are you going to revitalize our economy? How are you going to put millions of people back to work unless you deal with the greed, the recklessness, and the illegal behavior on Wall Street? And certainly Elizabeth Warren knows as much about that as anybody does, and I hope that she will be on the banking committee.
What do you see as the big issues coming before Congress in the not just the lame duck session, but as we go forward into the next year, Bernie? Let me tell you what is going to be a huge issue, and I hope that people get involved in this process. This is going to be the first issue that we deal with on the first day of the new session, and that is filibuster reform. Bingo.
And that has to be dealt with on the first day, because that is the day where the United States, the Senate, determines the rules under which they will live for the rest of the session. So on that day, we will bring up filibuster reform for the very simple reason that our Republican colleagues have used the filibuster in a way I think that no one ever intended it to be used. As I think I've mentioned before, Harry Reid, the majority leader, pointed out that when Lyndon Johnson was majority leader during his tenure, there was one filibuster. Since Reid has been majority leader, there have been hundreds of filibuster efforts. And what happens is one guy says, hey, I object to unanimous consent. You're going to need 60 votes to pass this thing. And they do this day after day, week after week. The result is that on issues and on pieces of legislation and amendments where we have 55 votes, 57 votes, 53 votes, we can't pass it because they are demanding 60 votes. Where we need to pass, get judges appointed, for example, we can't do that. Where legislation absolutely needs to get to the floor of the Senate so that it can get passed on behalf of the American people, we can't even get it onto the floor because we're backed up with all of these filibusters. So we need filibuster reform. I think folks are still working out exactly what the language will be. But to my mind, it is an absolutely imperative. We cannot continue to go forward as we have in the last 4 years when the main role of the Republican Party was to defeat every initiative coming from Democrats or Obama to make sure that Obama was a one-term president. Well, they didn't succeed on that. But now our job is to make sure that we can pass serious legislation with a majority vote.
There you go. Senator Bernie Sanders with us. We'll be taking your calls next here on the Thom Hartmann Program on our Brunch with Bernie Hour, our national town hall meeting with Senator Sanders. You can check out his website at sanders.senate.gov. And, of course, you can drop by ours, thomhartmann.com. If you want to drop into our live chat room, we've got a new app out, all kinds of cool stuff. Welcome back. Joyce in Clinton, Iowa, watching us on Free Speech TV on Dish Network. You are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hi, gentlemen. Mr. Sanders, I'm so glad you got reelected because you really educated me. I don't know about others, but me.
Thank you.
I have a question. What happens when Texas decides they're going to leave or the other states? That I don't really understand.
Secede from the union you're talking about, Joyce?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Joyce, I don't think it's going to happen. I wouldn't worry about it too much. I think one of the real problems that the right wing, that the Republican Party has, is an extreme right wing which is causing them severe embarrassment, and I think certainly played a role in Romney's defeat and the defeat of a number of Senate candidates. We had that war in 1861, and this nation determined that we were going to stick together as a nation. So I don't think that Texas or any other state is going to secede from the Union. What our political job is, Joyce, in my view, is to make it clear to the good people in Texas, to the working families in Texas, to the middle class in Texas, that they have got to join with those of us all over this country, in Iowa, in Vermont, in California, in doing everything that we can to see the middle class of this country grow, that we create the kinds of jobs that our people need, that we stop venting our anger against minorities or against people who are gay, or if we're men, against women, that we stand together and address such issues as the grossly unfair distribution of wealth and income, the need to create millions and millions of jobs in Texas, all over this country. They need decent paying jobs. They need to make sure that all of their people have health care as a right, which is certainly not the case in Texas. A lot of those folks do not have health insurance. We've got to deal with the serious, huge problem of global warming, which may end up dwarfing all other problems if the scientists are right and this planet continues to heat. So we've got to work together as a nation, bring working people together to stand up and fight for the kind of country that I know that we can create for our kids and our grandchildren. But as part of that, we've got to be prepared to take on big money interest and not scapegoat other folks.
And part of that, taking on those big money interests, you're still running the petition to roll back Citizens United?
Well, it's absolutely, but it's not just Citizens United. It is election reform. I will never forget, it's searing in my memory, Tom, those pictures of those folks in Florida who are waiting online for 5, 6, 9 hours in order to exercise their constitutional right to vote. That is not acceptable. Certainly the Citizens United decision has to be overturned, but we've got to go further than that. In my view, we need public funding of elections. The major problem politically in our country, and certainly here in Washington, D.C., is the power of big money over the political process, and that's what we have got to take on. How do we elect candidates who are beholden to the middle class and working families of our country, and not Wall Street and the CEOs of large corporations who put so much money into campaign contributions?
Amen. Senator Bernie Sanders with us. We'll be back with more of your questions for the senator after this.
Taxes, after all, are the dues that we pay for the privilege of membership in an organized society. The privileges of membership in a civilized society have vastly increased in modern times. But I am afraid we have many who still do not recognize their advantages and want to avoid paying their dues.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, and Senator Bernie Sanders on the line. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour here, our National Town Hall meeting. And Linda in Deerfield Beach, Florida, you are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Sanders, and congratulations on your reelection. I have two quick questions. I am a letter carrier. I'm 52 years old. I have had 2 rotator cuff surgeries, and I suffer from plantar fasciitis in both feet. They are talking about changing the Social Security age, and many letter carriers, this is a very physical job, and they want to move it to 72. And then our other dilemma is they were talking that in March, if Congress does not act, there will be about 220,000 layoffs because they're going to go to a 5-day delivery. And I will take your question off the air. Thank you very much.
Well, Linda, thank you very much for the work that you do for our country in terms of making sure the mail moves. Our Postal Service plays an enormously important part in our economy. I have worked very, very hard last year and will continue to work in making sure that we defeat those efforts coming from right-wing Republicans who really want to dismember the Postal Service, who want to make drastic cutbacks in mail delivery. It want to cut back on the delivery stations all over this country, cut back on rural post offices big time. We were able to stop them, not completely, but to a significant degree. So, Linda, we are going to continue our efforts. In fact, as soon as I leave this studio, I've got a few phone calls to make just on that issue, to protect the Postal Service, making sure that all of our people continue to get 6-day-a-week mail delivery, and that we protect the jobs that are there. In terms of Social Security, that's another issue, as I indicated earlier, that I've been working very hard on. Social Security is an enormously successful program. Without Social Security, probably half of the seniors in this country would be living in poverty rather than the 9% who currently are. It is absolutely true, as Linda indicates, that there are many folks, CEOs of large corporations, virtually all Republicans, some Democrats, who want to make cuts to Social Security. And they're looking at different schemes to do that. Raising the retirement age certainly is one. A so-called chain CPI, which would lower the cost of living adjustments that people on Social Security receive, is another approach. They're looking at various approaches. We're going to do everything that we can to stop them. We just had a rally here on Capitol Hill yesterday to do just that. And our point is that Social Security should not be part of the deficit discussion at all, because it hasn't contributed a nickel to the deficit, because it's funded by the payroll tax, and the Social Security Trust Fund has a $2.7 trillion surplus. So, Linda, we hear you loud and clear. And many of us are aware that whether people are working delivering mail as you are, people are wait staff, people are working in factories, people are working in agriculture, people cannot wait until they're to get a retirement check from Social Security until they're 68 or 69 or 70. If they can't do that, it is wrong, and we're going to do everything we can to prevent that from happening.
Mark in El Paso, Texas. You're on the air with Senator Bernie Sanders.
Hi, Senator Sanders. Hi, Tom. First of all, I want to thank the hard work you do, Senator. I get aggravated sometimes when I always hear the middle class, the middle class. I'm down here in Texas. I work for minimum wage trying to raise a family. And my question is, can we raise the minimum wage so at least I can get over the poverty line? Because it's really hard. Everything's gone up, from groceries, electric bills, you name it. You just get nothing. And you try, and I see how good my company does. And I'm like, man, like they don't have no will to hand down anything to help their own people out.
Mark, thanks very much for that question, and you are absolutely right. The issue is not just the middle class. The issue is lower income people who are struggling to stay alive on $9 an hour or $8 an hour. Often those folks do not have health insurance. Sometimes they live in states where it's hard for their kids to get Medicaid and health insurance. So, Mark, you're absolutely right. As part of a social justice agenda, we have got to raise the minimum wage. In the state of Vermont, our legislature and governor have supported annual COLA increases to deal with the issue of inflation. Our minimum wage at the state level is a lot higher than it is at the federal level. But I think you're right that we need to raise the minimum wage federally as a floor. And if states want to go higher than that, that's great. So thank you very much, Mark, for that very important point.
Just a minute to the break here. We're Jeff in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Quick question for Bernie?
Yes, Mr. Sanders. Congratulations on your overwhelming victory, and thank you for serving.
Thank you.
I would like to know your thoughts on the idea of placing a fee on stock transfers.
Jeff, count me in as one who believes very strongly in that. And last year we introduced the most comprehensive dental care legislation ever introduced in Congress. And one of the ways that we propose to pay for that is through a fee, what we call a transaction fee, on stock exchanges, touching on the big traders, not the little people. I think when you do that, you accomplish two things. First of all, even a tiny, tiny, tiny fee can bring in a significant sum of revenue to the federal government. And second of all, a fee like that can put a damper on some of the incredible speculation that goes on in Wall Street. So, yes, I believe in that very much.
It's our Brunch with Bernie hour here on the Thom Hartmann Program, our national town hall meeting with Senator Bernie Sanders, taking your calls. More right after this. Be sure to check out Bernie's website, sanders.senate.gov. Sign up for the Bernie Buzz. Sign his petition to amend the Constitution to roll back Citizens United.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 866-987-THOM.
In fact, I'd go so far as to say sanders.senate.gov is also a great news site. They really do a great job with that website. Check it out. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour. Senator Bernie Sanders on the line, taking your calls in our national town hall meeting. Scott in Aurora, Colorado, listening on AM 760 out of Denver. You are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hello. Thank you for taking my call, Tom and Senator. Recently, I think on Wednesday, Tom was talking about the Republican refusal to talk of investments in America and only talking of spending. And it seems to me that they also refuse to talk about the people's investment in Social Security and Medicare, and instead use a belittling term, excuse me, a belittling term such as requirements, or entitlements. I've recently heard it reframed as earned income benefits, and I was wondering if you feel that this reframing is a possible route to strengthening the conversation for the people's position, and I'll take my answer off the air.
Well, thank you, Scott. You raise a very important point. So let me just say this. When we talk about the economy, first point that we have to know is that today real unemployment is not 7.8%. It is closer to 15% if you include those people who have given up looking for work or working part-time. So when I think about the economy, I think about the need, the absolute need to create millions of jobs and do it as soon as we can. And we do that by investing, as Scott indicated, in rebuilding our infrastructure, and we invest in transforming our energy system so we deal with global warming and we cut back on greenhouse gas emissions. Second of all, in terms of programs like Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, in terms of Social Security, the American people have paid for what they are going to get. They have put 6.2% of their income into that program. Their employer put 6.2% into the program. And we now have in the Social Security Trust Fund $2.7 trillion surplus. In terms of how you phrase it, I think the issue is pretty clear, and that is that in a democratic, civilized society, we have got to understand that we are the only nation in the industrialized world that doesn't guarantee health care to all people as a right. So I'm going to do everything that I can to defend Medicare, which is a very successful and popular program, to do everything I can to defend Medicaid, but we have got to be more aggressive than just defending. I hope very much that my state of Vermont will be the first state in America which says that health care is a right, and we need to move forward with a Medicare for all single-payer program. We do not have to apologize to anybody to say that, yes, the children, the elderly, and working people should have health care. What we have to do is say that we as a nation are embarrassed that some 45,000 people die every single year because they can't get to a doctor when they should, because they don't have health care. And millions of people are suffering in pain today because of dental decay, because they can't find a dentist who will treat them. and that millions of people hesitate going to the doctor when they should because they don't have the money to cover their deductible. So I think on this issue, in Mitt Romney's infamous video, where he was recorded speaking to his wealthy friends, and he said, some people in America, they believe that health care is a right. Well, you know what? Count me in as one of those people who believe that health care is a right. In a moral, democratic society, everybody has got to be entitled to health care. Nobody should hesitate going to the doctor when they're sick because of their lack of insurance. People should not be suffering because they don't get to a doctor. We've got to get on the offensive. So our message should be, health care is a right.
Ian in Youngstown, Ohio. You are on the air with Senator Sanders.
I love XM, but Tom, you're the best of the best. It's an honor, Senator Sanders. I want to talk about redistricting. Ohio was light blue, and that includes the congressional races, and yet we've got a very red legislative body. Issue 2 failed, which I can only assume that people didn't understand what that was. That allows a very Republican legislature to go in and do even further redistricting. It seems like it's going to be insurmountable to win back the House based on gerrymandering.
Well, Ian, thanks very much for raising that point. In this campaign, this is what progressives were up against. As a result of Citizens United, we were up against an unbelievable, unprecedented amount of money, and you certainly in Ohio saw that coming against your very fine Senator Sherrod Brown. Obama's campaign saw it as well. Billionaires by the dozens put huge amounts of money into the campaign, trying to defeat Obama and progressive candidates all over this country. Number 2, you saw voter suppression. You saw efforts trying to make it harder for senior citizens, for low-income people who might not have driver's licenses, to be able to participate in the political process. And the third area that we saw during this campaign, and that's what Ian is talking about, is this incredible redistricting and gerrymandering that took place in Republican states. I mean, gerrymandering is not a new idea. In fact, it's named after a guy who lived a couple of hundred years ago, I think. But I think the Republicans took it to an entirely new level. The truth is that Democrats actually won more votes in House races than Republicans did, but were only able to pick up, I think, 8 or 9 seats in the House because so many districts were created that protect incumbent Republicans. This is an issue that we are going to have to deal with, I think, through the courts, as well as state by state. Ian, no simple solution to that, but you're right in saying that it is a very significant issue.
Dave in Murphy's, California. You are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hello, Senator Sanders, and thank you, Tom, for this great show. Could you please give me your thoughts on 2 simple ideas to help solve America's economic problems? First, a minimum alternative corporate income tax for all American megacorporations who have millions for political campaigns yet pay 0 taxes. Would this help return missing proceeds to America's budget deficit? And second, I understand America's largest export today is petroleum. Would a national energy policy that says no net export of American-drilled petroleum bring us strength and security?
All right, Dave, thanks for your questions. You've raised significant issues. I'm not sure that your particular solution is the best way to deal with them. Right now, in terms of your first point, we have a tax system which is in a significant way written by lobbyists representing large corporations here in D.C. We have a tax system which enables 1 out of 4 profitable corporations to pay 0 in taxes. We did a study of this last year. We documented, I think it was some 20 separate corporations, many of them in energy, many of them on Wall Street, who made huge profits, paid nothing in taxes, and in some cases actually got a rebate from the IRS. Should we end this absurdity? The answer is absolutely we should. Is a minimum alternative approach one way that we might look at? Yeah, probably other ways will be better. But the bottom line is that when you have a corporation earning billions of dollars in profit, that corporation certainly should be paying taxes. In terms of petroleum, let me say this. I think, if you like, I wouldn't call it a sleeper issue, but an issue that is certainly not getting the attention that it deserves is the issue of global warming, of climate change. Tom, you may have seen on the front page of the Washington Post last week a very, very frightening article. And what the article said is that those scientists who most study this issue now believe that the worst case scenario in terms of the warming of the Earth may in fact be the most likely scenario.
Yes,
and they are talking about the possibility, think about this, that at the turn of this century, the year 2100, this planet might be 8 degrees warmer than it is today in less than 90 years. That is unbelievable.
It's what James Hansen said would be incompatible with our species.
Right. I mean, so you're talking about literally the future of civilization, because when you have that kind of warming, it will wreak havoc from one end of this planet to the other. And I think that the president has got to put this issue front and center and make it clear. We cannot continue to depend upon fossil fuels for our energy. We must make a fundamental transition to energy efficiency and to sustainable energy. We have to do this for the future of this planet. We have to do this to prevent spending billions and billions of dollars to repair the damage done by these extreme weather disturbances like Hurricane Sandy.
It's our Brunch with Bernie hour. Senator Bernie Sanders taking your calls from the United States Senate here today. 866-987-THOM, our telephone number. We'll be back with more of your calls for Senator Sanders.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
And don't forget to not only check out Bernie's website, but sign up over there for his newsletter. It's at sanders.senate.gov. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann, Senator Bernie Sanders with you. Anna in Guyton, Georgia. Do I have your name right?
Oh, yes, sir. And thank you for getting me on, because I've tried to call the show before once, and I was waiting for over 2 hours, and
oh my,
got my call.
Well, you're on with Senator Sanders right now.
Okay. Anyway, my question is that with the new face of the House and Senate, do you think that we will eventually, or at least hopefully soon, get a federal employment non-discrimination law that with focus on gender identity
that would protect the LGBT community?
Oh, good.
Yes,
okay.
Strictly trans. And do you think we may eventually get particularly in another election, get a transgendered representative in our government finally?
Well, I can't predict what the political future is of any candidate. As I think you know, Tammy Baldwin of Wisconsin is the first openly gay member of the United States Senate. Tammy won a great victory last week. Interestingly enough, and what I was very pleased about, Tom, in Wisconsin, that was virtually a non-issue. The issue between her and former Governor Tommy Thompson was on the issues facing the people of Wisconsin and America, which is the way it should be. The fact that Tammy is gay was an issue that neither candidate talked about much, and that's what I hope the future will be. So to answer the caller's question, I think we have seen a tsunami in terms of changes of attitude, especially among younger people, in terms of gay rights and LGBT rights, and I have no reason not to believe that in the future you're going to see more and more gay folks entering the House and the Senate, and I think that is a good thing. We want the Congress to reflect who the American people are. I have a concern, for example, in the Senate now we have no African Americans, and that does not make sense to me. But hopefully the day comes when the House and the Senate truly, not only in terms of policy, are representing the vast majority of the people, the middle class, the working families, lower income people, but also in terms of demographics, who the people of our country are. So we've made progress in terms of women. Right now we have 20 women in the United States Senate. That's a significant improvement. Clearly we have a long, long way to go. We're making progress, but we have much to do in the years to come.
Bernie, we just a minute to the break here. Do you think that there will be legislation protecting the wages, the working rights of LGBT people at the federal level?
I would like to see that, Tom. And all I can tell you is I think there is a lot of momentum out there now in support of gay rights in a broad sense. And I think that should be included in it. I think our Republican friends have begun to catch on that homophobia is not necessarily good politics anymore.
Do you expect DOMA to be repealed?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, the Defense of Marriage Act. In the next Congress?
I voted against that years and years ago. It wasn't so popular to vote against it when I was in the House.
Right.
But I think now I would be surprised if it was not repealed.
Yeah, it's kind of like we've turned a corner. It's like, in the 60s when the anti-miscegenation laws went down in flames. And then everybody was like, why did we ever do that?
Exactly.
Exactly. It's really remarkable. Senator Bernie Sanders with us. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour, taking your calls in our national town hall meeting. Check out Bernie's website at sanders.senate.gov. We'll be right back with more of your calls for Senator Sanders after this. Welcome back. Turn on your radio and your TV. Thom Hartmann here with you. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour. Senator Bernie Sanders on the line, and Bob in Marcel. Is it Marseille or Marcel's, Illinois? How do you pronounce it?
It's Marseille. There's nobody in town that can speak French.
Okay, Marseille has been anglicized. Listening on WCPT, you are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Yes, I've got a solution to the post office problem. We have to find the people that are coming out ahead. And basically, it's not just UPS and FedEx. If the post office fails, somebody since 2006 has been collecting all that money that's driving them broke. And basically, I know whenever I had a defined benefit or medical program for 40 years, if I didn't get any money paid in, I lost out. Who is going to be making the money? Who are the insurance companies that are collecting the money for the post office to provide that retirement and retirement medical insurance that are going to stick the money in their pockets when the post office bites the dust?
Well, Bob, I don't look at it like that at all. I think the major problem, I know the front pages of the papers, every few months will tell you the post office is going broke and broke and broke. The fact of the matter is, while they do have problems, no question that email has taken away a lot of business from first-class mail. Their major problem is that as a result, as Tom indicated a moment ago, legislation in 2006 insisted upon by the Bush administration, they have got to put an ungodly amount of money, much, much more than is necessary, into future health retirement benefits. And in the Senate, I worked very hard on this issue. We essentially, for all intent and purposes, took that out. And we said to the post office, you're no longer going to have to make those types of contributions every single year. Unfortunately, our colleagues in the House have refused to move. Many of these guys would love to see the post office, in fact, go broke. They would like to see the post office privatized, and that's what we're up against. But bottom line is, it is Congress's fault, upon the insistence of the president, that we put a huge amount of money every single year into this future retiree health program. which has enough money right now. We don't have to put any more money into it.
Yeah, and that president was George Bush when that was passed. Right. Bernie, is that money invested in treasuries like the Social Security Trust Fund is?
Yes,
or is it sitting in a bank someplace?
Nope, it is earning interest, absolutely.
Okay. Just
I don't know. I can't tell you exactly where it is sitting. I suspect it is invested in treasuries, but part of the revenue stream for the post office is the interest earned on that investment.
Interesting. Okay, I just wanted to make sure it wasn't Citibank, you know. Robert in Dundalk, Maryland. Is that right, Robert?
Yes. Senator, can you propose a change in the filibuster rules to lower the threshold to end debate from 60 to 55, solely for the issues, say, of natural disaster relief and for confirmation of cabinet, agency, and judicial appointments?
Robert, that is one of the ideas. I should tell you that right now, folks like Senator Merkley, Senator Tom Udall of New Mexico, and others, and I, are looking at a number of approaches. Senator Harkin had the idea that his approach had to do with going from 60, give it a certain amount of time, then you take it down to 58. Give that a certain amount of time, then you take it down to 55. So there are different options that are out there. I cannot tell you what the final conclusion will be. We have to, bring a bunch of people together to do this. But I will tell you that on the first day of the new session, if I have anything to say about it, now I think the majority leader is on board on this. There will be change in filibuster rules in the United States Senate. There will be a serious effort to end the dysfunctionality and the obstructionism which is now taking place.
Okay, 2 minutes to the end of the show here. Daniel in Greensburg, Pennsylvania. Quick question for the senator?
Yeah. Hi, Senator Sanders. I just wanted to see if we could get a vote on the Chinese currency manipulation bill. That is a bill that's going to create hundreds of thousands of jobs and won't cost the federal government a cent. In fact, it'll bring tariff tax revenue into the federal government. And the fact that it's taken a year for Speaker Boehner, I don't think he's going to vote for it. But is there any way we can get it as part of a deal to get a vote on it, a yes or no, so the president can sign it? Thank you so much.
Daniel, the short answer is I certainly hope so. I think you're right. And I think that is exactly what we should be doing. We continue to have huge trade deficits with China, and currency manipulation is one of the factors in that. Tom, we're about. I think we are.
We're about to wrap it up, Bernie. Your thoughts for the week?
Let me just say this. Just 2 points that I want to make. Number one, I hope everybody understands that on Election Day, our side won a very, very significant victory. The president ended up with 3 million more votes in the popular vote than Mr. Romney. Democrats won 25 out of 33 contested Senate seats, won some seats in the House. What is important now is for the American people to make it very clear to the president, to the Democrats, that they have got to govern as if they won, which they did, a significant victory. Yes, we're always open to compromise, but we won the election and the American people have spoken. And what that means to my mind is moving forward in deficit reduction in a way that is fair, protecting Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, moving forward to a significant jobs program, putting people back to work, understanding that global warming is not a hoax, as some of our Republicans think, but a very, very serious crisis for this country and our planet. So there is a significant agenda that we need to push forward. And we need the American people to be supporting us in this effort. So that's my concluding message, Tom.
Okay, and a fine one it is. Senator Sanders, thank you so much again this week for being with us. It is always an honor to have you on here, sir.